We live today in conditions of superabundance, and news is one of the commodities which is now superabundant all around us, wherever we are in the world, not just here in the tourist trap of Oxford, of course, but any of us now can access news anywhere at any time, as long as we can get online. We no longer have to live within the distribution route of a newspaper or in the footprint of a television or radio mast to access news. Now, these are conditions that have grown up around us over the past 15 or 20 years, and at the same time, and not coincidentally, we are also immersed in increasing debate and discussion about the conduct and content of news. We're here in Oxford with its famous honey-coloured colleges amid the tourists. But here in the UK, the ramifications are still playing out of the phone hacking scandal, where reporters from national newspapers hacked into people's mobile phone accounts to find out secret information. And also, therefore, as well as that debate about the conduct of news, there's a lot of debate about the content of news. And that's really something that's grown up over the same period. And one of its chief preoccupations has been the role of journalism in representing issues of conflict. And that certainly has applied through episodes of public concern, such as the Gulf War of 1991, the wars of succession in Yugoslavia, through to the humanitarian interventions, so-called, of more recent times, Kosovo, 99, the invasions of Afghanistan and Iraq, and of course Libya. And as I speak to you today, British politics is still rebounding from a very stinging attack on the government's handling of the NATO attack on Libya in 2011 under David Cameron, who was then the Prime Minister. So throughout all those episodes, there's been increasing concern about the role played by news and a revival of interest, therefore, in that period of why it is that news portrays and represents issues of conflict as it does. And that's really the context in which peace journalism has attracted increasing attention in the UK and elsewhere, and has spread, indeed, to other cultures, other mediascapes, and that's one very important implication of the appearance of this book, which we're launching here today. So that's a very welcome development for me. Now, what is peace journalism? Well, peace journalism is essentially a remedial strategy, and it's a response to a concern that the structures of media give rise to a dominant form of war journalism. And war journalism means not merely the reporting of war, in the sense of reporters reporting on wars, but also journalism which in some ways appears to make violence somehow more legitimate. It either leads or leaves its readers and audiences to infer that the use of force will amount to a sensible, feasible, perhaps inevitable response to issues of conflict. And that effect really is usually unwitting on the part of the journalists concerned, and it instead arises organically from the interplay of the structures within which journalism is produced. And so therefore there's a case for having this remedial form of peace journalism. So where war journalism tends to concentrate on violent events, peace journalism tries to find ways to illuminate the process that leads up to those events. It tends to be curious about what is really at stake in the conflict, whose interests are in play, how do they come to be perceived as such, and how could they be addressed and resolved in a different kind of way. And it's not about trying to turn journalism into advocacy. That's a frequent misnomer. No, instead it's an advocacy position about journalism. It wants professional journalism to do a different and, in many important respects, better job. So peace journalism has caught on in this period, not only in the UK, but also in countries, especially countries where journalists are immersed in conflict and tend to find themselves asking, well, what can I do through my professional activities to try to improve the prospects for society. So places like Indonesia around the turn of this millennium, following the fall of the Suharto regime in Indonesia, or the southern Philippines, for example, where there's a lot of talk about peace and the importance of peace, places such as that. So peace journalism took off in the form of journalist training, in development interventions, and as a reform proposition in and around journalism. And then it also became the subject of scholarly inquiry. And that's where the contributions to this book come in, not only from Johan Galtung and myself. And Johan Galtung really is the person who first started to talk and write about peace journalism, but also others who come from different disciplinary backgrounds. So the chapter by Birgit Brockutner, for example, links peace journalism with issues concerning the representation of women in media and gender issues more generally, and a whole range and array of different concerns and preoccupations as peace journalism has spread its influence through the academy. But what's really, I think, distinctive about what is sometimes called the peace journalism movement is that most people who think and write about peace journalism are trying to foster and bring about some kind of cross-fertilization between theory and practice. And here in the UK, and no doubt in Italy and lots of places, people will feel that journalism is in need of reform. And journalism needs to do somehow a better job in discharging its broader social responsibilities, with a special reference to its role in reporting issues of conflict. So hopefully the progress we're making in spreading peace journalism through the Academy, with the extremely welcome publication of this book, will also rub off in terms of prompting and enabling debates among journalists and the reading, listening and viewing public about the kind of journalism we want from first principles, and hopefully that will lead to us being better equipped to think more creatively about how to respond as a society to conflicts and crises. So with that, I wish you well for the launch of this book. I hope it goes extremely well, and I hope lots of people get to read it. Thank you for watching and listening to me. And with that, it's goodbye from me in Oxford.